welcome to this elite series of brass building blocks. My name's David Childs and I'm Professor of Euphonium at the University of North Texas, a bass and solo artist and a former euphonium tutor and featured soloist with the National Youth Brass Band of Great Britain. In this class, I'll be giving my thoughts on how to develop musicality. First of all, what is musicality? The Oxford Dictionary description is skill and understanding in performing music. The Cambridge Dictionary description is similar, skill and good judgment in playing music. So, assuming we've worked on the various skills we need to play a brass instrument, basics such as breathing, sound, technique, rhythm, dynamics and stamina, how can we develop good judgment or understanding to present these skills in a musically convincing way? In my opinion, the simple answer is to listen. Listen to all kinds of music: classical, jazz, pop, contemporary, brass bands, orchestras, big bands, wind bands, and of course solo artists, whether they be instrumentalists or singers. Having a varied appreciation of music and thinking about what makes that music sound the way it does is the first step to developing your own musical voice. In the same vein, you should try to broaden your own solo repertoire as much as you can. New works with contemporary techniques, classical transcriptions, some jazz, traditional air varies, songs and such like. A diverse repertoire will better inform your musical intentions. For some players, turning a phrase beautifully or playing something with great excitement comes quite naturally. But for others, we need to understand what is happening on a technical level when we hear a special performance that has an impact on us. With this in mind, I thought I'd go through a couple of areas where I believe care and consideration can be given when developing a musical performance. I think the easiest way to do this is probably by demonstrating two versions of a few different excerpts. One version that I don't consider to be all that musical, and another where I might apply various tools of expression to enhance the performance. Let's start with a simple Welsh tune, Watching the Wheat. So that was a pretty bland verse of a Welsh song. I played all the right notes, it was in tune with the correct rhythms, but it didn't really do anything for me. Here's another version. Hopefully you noticed that was a little different to the previous version. It's easy to say it sounded more musical, but let's analyse what gave that impression by going through the basic tools of expression I used. First of all, rubato, which means the temporary disregarding of strict tempo to allow an expressive quickening or slackening, usually without altering the overall pace. In that performance, I moved the music on in places to increase intensity and relaxed the tempo in other places to give more time and space. Although it's imperative that we learn music with correct rhythms and a strict tempo, in performance, rubato can be a wonderfully expressive tool. Let's move on to another tool of expression, vibrato. Vibrato can be defined as a slightly tremulous effect imparted to vocal or instrumental tone for added warmth and expressiveness. I like this definition, and it sums up why I chose to use vibrato on the second version of Watching the Wheat. I wanted to recreate that warm cantabile style that we associate with songs. Vibrato is, however, a contentious subject. If used too often or in the same way all of the time, rather than it be an expressive quality, it can sound a little like a bad habit. I love to watch string players perform with vibrato because you can see clearly through the movement of their fingers, wrist, arms, the different speeds and the varying levels of intensity that can be achieved when using vibrato. We shouldn't use the same vibrato all of the time. Finally, dynamic is another very important tool of expression. I varied the dynamic quite a lot during the Watching the Wheat, but it's not just reserved for lyrical playing. Dynamic and variation in articulation should be the main areas of focus when playing fast music in a musically convincing way. Rubato and vibrato are usually not options when it comes to rapid music, but dynamic variation can make a huge difference. Again, I'll play two versions of a short phrase from Philip Wilby's Euphonium Concerto to demonstrate. See if you can tell the difference. So, musicality isn't magic. It isn't something that can't be developed. In actual fact, it's the most important aspect to develop. As musicians, it's our job to take a technically perfect performance, something you might hear from a music software playback, and humanize it. My teacher taught me that music starts where perfection ends. Once you're playing all the right notes with good rhythm at the correct tempo, the fun really starts. You can begin to make music. To conclude, here's a performance of a song I recorded with members of the National Youth Brass Band of Great Britain during the COVID-19 lockdown. We each recorded our parts individually to a click track, so had to work particularly hard to create a musically convincing performance. It's composed by Sir Carl Jenkins and it's appropriately entitled I'll Make Music.